Welcome to Song for This Day. And you're probably wondering what it is exactly you've gotten yourself into. So I'm going to explain it. We're going to take a bunch of songs and we're going to dive into the context of the song. We're going to talk about who sang them, who wrote them, who produced them, and then we're going to get into each song lyrically, because the three songs we're going to do today are actually interesting story songs, and some of them are pretty comical. So you're saying to yourself, well, who are you to do this? Okay, a little background. My name is Ed Walsh. I have a BA from St. John's University in psychology with a minor in philosophy. But my important degree comes from the Chicago School of Broadcasting. I spent a year in Chicago working at a local radio station and actually have done some fill-in work here on WLNG 92.1, the East End's best music. I have an extensive record collection, tons of vinyl records. I have a cartload of CDs, a bunch of cassettes. I even have a few 8-tracks left. And all of them are in alphabetical order. Yes, I am obsessive. So we're going to talk today about 3 different songs, and each of them is a story song. Good songs, songs you may love, songs you may not love so much, but I promise you, at the end of this show, you're going to think about each one of them in a very different way. So we're going to start with El Paso, which is a song that Marty Robbins wrote in 1959. It's on his album, Gunfighter Ballads and Trail Songs. And it was released, they released a single of El Paso from that album, and it ran for 4 minutes and 28 seconds, which at that point in time was really pretty unusual because the going number for songs was 3 minutes or under. So Columbia, the record label, wasn't sure that this song could actually get airplay at 4 minutes and 28 seconds. So they sent out copies to the program directors with the big version and a reduced version, edited down to fit that 3-minute mark. However, the DJs and the audiences wanted to hear the full story. So El Paso went on to become a #1 song at 4 minutes and 28 seconds. It was #1 on the Billboard charts, and it was #1 also on the country charts, the first song in the 60s to ever do that. It also won a Grammy, first ever, in the category of country and Western artists, El Paso. So Marty Robbins said he wrote this song as he was driving across Texas with his family on his way to Arizona. And he based one of the characters in the song, Felina, on a 5th grade companion, Fidelina Martinez. But let's get into it, because it's an interesting song. So we start off in the West Texas town of El Paso, where our narrator is in love with Felina, and he visits her all the time. But he does feel, however, that his love is in vain. Still, he presses on. And then, one night, a dashing young cowboy comes in, sharing drinks with Felina. Now, I've often thought this should be a movie. It never was, but it's always been like the subtext of a lot of Westerns. And in those Westerns, they have the romance and the love in vain, and what we're going to see coming up, an ultimate gunfight. I thought casting the movie would be interesting. Your first Western actor that you might think about is Clint Eastwood. But if Clint Eastwood couldn't get the girl, he'd just find another one. So I thought, maybe Gary Cooper. Now, in movies, he was a pretty sincere, straightforward, and honest guy. So if he fell in love with Felina, he would be in love with Felina. And who to play Felina? Madonna. Why not? Get a little bit more into this century. And how about our dashing young cowboy? Well, in the picture, we have Val Kilmer. But I was thinking more a young Robert Redford. However, he probably wouldn't be likely to take the role, because as you'll see, it's a short one. He's going to die. So our narrator, he challenges the dashing young cowboy to the love of his maiden. And in true Western style, the dashing young cowboy reaches for his gun, because that's the way you settle an argument out west. But it turns out that our narrator is faster on the draw, and he shoots and kills him. So now he's standing in Rita Cantina, and he's killed a man, and he thinks, I'd better leave. which is probably a good idea. Now here's where it gets interesting and kind of amusing. So he goes out of the door and he says he went out to where the horses were tied. He looked for a good one that looked like it could run, and up in the saddle and away he did ride. Now think about that for a minute. He shot a guy in the bar, so what does he do now? He runs outside and he steals a horse. In the annals of the Western Code, that may be more of a crime than actually shooting the guy in the bar. And wait a minute, how did he get to Felina's? Doesn't he have his own horse? In any event, we move on, and he rides off into the Badlands of New Mexico. But alas, he pines for his love, and he says, even the fear of death is less than the pain in his heart for Felina. So he gets back on that stolen horse, we presume, and rides back to Rosa's cantina. And at the top of the hill, he looks down, he's almost there, and I'm thinking he's gonna make it. And he starts down the hill to the cantina to find his love, Felina. But then he looks off to his right, or your right, as the case may be, and he sees 5 mounted cowboys. And then he looks over on the other side to the left, and he sees a dozen or more. And all of these guys, I don't have enough fingers, 17 of them are shouting and shooting at him. But he's not giving up. He's going to get to Felina. So he rides down the hill, and at some point he says he feels a real burning in his side, and he's getting tired, and he can no longer ride. He falls off the horse. Now we presume from that, even though it's not detailed in the song, that he got shot. Hey, 17 guys shooting at you, someone's got to hit you. Even as we've seen so many cowboy movies where they just keep shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting and nobody ever seems to get shot. He got shot. But he's on foot now, and nothing is going to stop him from getting to Felina. So he's running along, and here comes one of my favorite lines in pretty much all songs, and it's my favorite because it's so visual. He says, I see the white puff of smoke from the rifle. I feel the bullet go deep in my chest. Visual. I mean, there's 2 quick lines, and you conjure up this complete image. So he's done for, but not until Felina finds him and gives him the last kiss. So we have a classic story. We have gunfights. We have horse theft. We have chases. We have more gunfights. We have a story of love, and ultimately, the end of our narrator. Now we have Val Kilmer up there, and recently I rewatched the movie Tombstone, which is a great film. Kurt Russell, Sam Elliott, Val Kilmer, a whole bunch of other great stars in it. And towards the end of the film, Johnny Ringo, who is the fastest gun in the West, challenges Wyatt Earp to a gunfight. Well, Doc Holliday, he's Wyatt's best friend, and he knows that Wyatt can't beat Johnny Ringo. So, Doc Holliday shows up, and Johnny Ringo looks at him and he's like, what? To which Val Kilmer replies, in one of the more memorable lines, certainly in this movie and in many movies, he says, I'm your huckleberry. What? I'm your huckleberry? I didn't know what that meant. I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be funny or what, so I looked it up. It turns out, in the 1800s, that when you said, I'm your huckleberry, it meant, I'm your guy. I'm the man you're looking for. I'm the one. So anyway, just in case you haven't seen the film, it turns out Doc Holliday is faster than the fastest gun in the West, and he kills Johnny Ringo. Good movie. Watch it, Tombstone. We're going to shift gears here dramatically, song-wise, and we're going to talk about a song called Escape. No, it's not Escape from New York. It's Escape, the Piña Colada Song. Now wait. Do not leave, because I know many of you out there are thinking to yourself, do not make me think about this song again. I've heard it 1,000 times, and I just don't want to hear it. Well, as it turns out, it's really difficult to get the rights to songs to play them, and very expensive. so you won't have to hear it, but we are going to talk about it. So Escape, it was written by Rupert Holmes. And Rupert Holmes actually wrote a bunch of Broadway plays, like Say Goodnight, Gracie, and The Mystery of Edwin Drood. And he also wrote songs that were recorded by Barbra Streisand, Britney Spears, Judy Collins, a lot of other artists. He created a TV series called When, W-E-N-N, and he's won Emmys and Tonys and Edgars. And even he says, when people encounter him and recognize who he is, what's the first thing they say? Oh, you're the guy who wrote that Piña Colada Song. Even Rupert Holmes has said, the song was never meant to be heard 100 million times. It was a short story with a little wink at the end of it, and that was it. Now, he started off in the music business when he was 20. And he was writing jingles. He updated Charlie Pride's catalog. Here's an interesting fact. He did the arrangement for the marching band version of Jingle Bell Rock. I'd love to hear that. I don't know about you. Rupert Holmes. He also had a good friend, Michael Wright. Michael, he worked for Scepter Records. He was a junior executive there, but he had a key to the studio. And when the studio wasn't being used, he would call up Rupert and say, Rupert, let's get together and do some music. And they would. One time he said to Rupert Holmes, the record label just signed this group called The Boys, B-U-O-Y-S. Isn't that clever? He said, they're not songwriters. They don't have anything good to record. So what do you think? Could you write them a hit single? And Rupert Holmes thought, I could do that. I could write a hit single. So he went home and he started working on it, playing some tunes, and he got the tune together. It was a happy, poppy tune. But he couldn't figure out what the lyrics are going to be. And he thought to himself, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a song that's going to get banned, and we're all going to be famous. While he was thinking that thought, he was listening to Tennessee Ernie Ford. You load 16 tons, and what do you get? He's like, yeah, okay. He was also watching a lot of TV. And all of a sudden, Julia Child came on TV, and he said, Eureka, I've got it. That's the song. And he wrote a song called Timothy. Happy, poppy tune. Now, if you've lived in New York for most of your life, you've probably never heard Timothy. And do you know why? Because when the record label sent out the song to all of the program directors around the country, it came into the viewing of local program directors here in New York who are very discerning. And they listened to it and they said, yeah, no, we're not going to play that song. Done. Not going to play it. Outside of the New York market, however, most of those program directors never really paid attention to it. Happy, poppy tune, they played it. People kept calling into the station, I love that song, keep playing it, I love that song, keep playing it. Finally, the program directors started to listen to it. And they said, what? Have you listened to this song? We can't play this song. And they tried to stop playing the song, but the listeners wouldn't let them. Timothy became a top 20 hit outside of the New York marketplace. And the program directors found out what the song was about. Here's what it was about. It's these three boys, and they decide to go exploring in a mine. You load 16 tons, and what do you get? But they get trapped. And they're in the mine for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, until they're finally rescued. When they're rescued, there's only two of them. And they can't remember what happened to Timothy. It's his song, Timothy. I'm going to tell you what happened to Timothy. Timothy relates to the Julia Childs part of this story. What happened to him? Yes, the boys ate him. Probably the only top 20 song that ever dealt with the concept of cannibalism. You can tell your friends. Listen to it. That's exactly what happened. There was another song way before that called Stranded in the Jungle, and they had the guy in a pot and they were going to cook him up, but they never ate him. They did in Timothy. Let's move on to Escape, though. Enough of this cannibalism stuff. It's dark. So Escape, Rupert Holmes' song. As he said, never meant to be played 100 million times. Just a quick, short story with a little wink at the end. And I promise you, when we get to the end of this song, unless you already know this, you're going to think of it in a completely different way. So we start out with this very sleazy narrator. The narrator, actually, is thinking about the dusty romance that he's involved in with his own lovely lady. And here's what he's doing. I'll be right back. Don't go away. He's sitting in bed, a lovely lady next to him. And he's reading the personal columns. What? He's looking for something, he doesn't know what, and he encounters the chorus that we all hate. If you love Piña Coladas and getting caught in the rain, and I'm sorry, as often as that phrase gets used in songs, getting caught in the rain, there's nothing romantic about it. Anyway, it goes on to say, and if you like making love in the Cape, then come with me and we'll escape. And he says, bingo, that's the love that I'm looking for, as the personal ad says. So he writes his own personal ad and he puts it in the paper. Only he says, I don't want to wait to hear back from you. If we're going to plan our escape, then we should meet tomorrow at noon at a bar called O'Malley's. And so he says, he waited with high hopes. And as soon as she walked into the bar, he realized he knew her. He could tell by her smile and the curve of her face, it was his own lovely lady. And she said, well, it's you. No. She didn't say it that way. She said it, oh, it's you. Here's the surprise. In the personal column that he responded to, it was placed by whom? Yes, his own lovely lady had put that personal ad in. She was dumping him way before he got the idea that he needed to move on to the next adventure. So there he is. You assume, although there's no real resolve in the song, it just jumps right into that annoying earworm part of the song that says, if you like piña coladas and getting lost in the rain. So what did happen to him? Here's what I think happened to him. Stay right there. I'll be back. I think that he wound up on the Cape in the rain with some champagne, good rhyme there, Ed, by himself. And his own lovely lady probably had her own champagne with her new and more exciting lover. So, let me read this because I'm not good with Shakespeare, but I think this kind of sums it up. Shakespeare said, the course of true love never did run smooth. I'll know more of you, besides you grow dishonest. So that can erase that earworm that's going through your head right now that says, if you like piña coladas. I apologize for that. Okay, we're going to move ahead now to the third song. And this is one of my all-time favorite songs, favorite story songs. It's The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia. Now, initially you might think, if you've never heard the song before, and I know you have hundreds of times, wow, it's about a blackout. No. It's about losing power in Georgia. No. Not quite sure what it actually meant, but hey, it fit. The song, as it turns out, was written by Bobby Russell. At the time, Bobby Russell was married to Vicki Lawrence. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, every time I saw Vicki Lawrence on the Carol Burnett show, I thought to myself, she looks just like a younger version of Carol Burnett. I bet she's Carol Burnett's younger twin sister. Well, of course, they're not related. But Bobby Russell, when he wrote the song, and by the way, he wrote a bunch of other songs. He was a fairly prolific national songwriter. He wrote that very happy song, Honey. Okay, it wasn't so happy because the wife dies in the middle of the song. And then he wrote another little piece of melodrama called God didn't make little green apples. Not quite as bad as honey, but it won a Grammy for O.C. Smith, so it had to be a good song, and it was a big #1 hit. So the night the lights went on in Georgia, Bobby Russell wrote the song, and he wanted somebody big to record it. And he thought, well, maybe Sonny and Cher could do it. So he sent it off to them. And Sonny read the lyrics, and he said, no, this is going to offend Cher's Southern fans. Can't do it. Sent it off to Linda Ronstadt. Linda Ronstadt said, yeah, no thanks. But Vicki Lawrence said, Bobby, this is a good hit. I would like to have a good hit. Let me record it. So he said, yeah, all right, let's do it. They did a demo. The record company loved it. They released it, and boom, it becomes a #1 hit. Frequently played, millions and millions of copies are sold, and then Reba McEntire records it, and it becomes a big #1 country hit. And it's such a big hit that somebody foolish decides to make a movie out of it. Now, I've never seen the movie, but it did get 1.5 stars. So that is probably a good reason to never really see the movie. But here's a song that inspired a movie. So let's get into it and find out just what it was that drew all of these movie producers to want to create a movie. So we start off with a character who is kind of nameless through the song, but in the movie, I checked, they call him Travis. So I'm going to call him Travis as well. Travis, he's been out of town for 2 weeks, left his wife behind, and he's gone to Candletop. I know nothing about Georgia geography, but I checked Candletop. And the biggest, most important thing in Candletop, Georgia, is a prison. Now, I don't know what Travis was doing there. He couldn't have been in prison. He was only gone for 2 weeks. Couldn't have been visiting somebody. He was gone for 2 weeks. So we don't know. But he comes back, 2-week adventure away from his wife. He decides he's going to stop at the local bar and have a beer before he goes home. And he walks into the local bar, and who does he run into but his friend Andy Wardlow. Now, just to qualify, Andy is not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and you'll see why in a minute. So here comes Travis. Hey, Andy. Travis says, hey, how you doing? They sit down to have a beer, but before he even has the first sip of beer, Andy says to him, I got some bad news for you. Now, that's not the first thing you should say to a friend you haven't seen for a while. But Andy says, your wife, while you've been out of town, has been sleeping with that Seth Amos boy. Well, Travis is like, what? I've been gone 2 weeks? And she's sleeping with Seth Amos? He's hurt. He's angry. He's upset. He doesn't know what to do. But Andy's a good friend. So he wants to calm him down. I mean, what does a friend do at this point in time? So he says the only thing he can. He says, by the way, Travis, I'm sleeping with her too. Wait, what? Now he's really pissed. And Andy, not the sharpest knife in the drawer, thinks, uh-oh, this was not a good idea. I better get out of here. Meantime, Travis is really upset. So he goes home. His wife isn't there. But the only thing his father left him, not like the other song, the only thing our father left was alone. His father at least left him a gun. He takes the gun, and he is going to go kill Andy. Well, you think to yourself, maybe he should do that. I don't know. He gets to Andy's house, and he finds tracks in the ground, small tracks. Now, I don't know weather in Georgia, but I'm thinking maybe it snowed, and that's how he saw those tracks so easily. Maybe he's a hunter, and he saw them anyway. So Travis goes into Andy's house, gun in hand, but Andy's dead. Andy's laying on the floor in a pool of blood. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, every time I've been in that situation, the first thing I do is I wipe my fingerprints off the doorknob, I look around to make sure I haven't touched anything, and I go to Ecuador because I do not want to be implicated in that. However, Travis doesn't do that. He shoots the gun so he can attract the sheriff. And when the sheriff arrives, in true Georgia expert forensic abilities, He looks at the house and he says, dead guy, pool of blood, man with a gun. Travis, why did you do that? Well, apparently Travis didn't need a lawyer, didn't get a lawyer, but they took him right to the judge and they presented the evidence. Dead body, pool of blood, gun in his hand, guilty. Now, here's the interesting thing. Apparently in Georgia, or at least in the song about Georgia, justice is quick. They hung him. Travis get hung. Done with Travis. Now, I thought to myself, there are some instances in today's world where that kind of quick justice might be a good idea. Somebody shoots the executive of a big company on a city street and they get caught on camera doing it and they have to have a trial. Take them to Georgia. They know what to do with people like that. We still need due process. It's important in today's world. We are civilized. So here's where the song turns now, and it gets even more interesting if you haven't thought it's interesting up until now. We discover that the singer of the song is Travis's sister. She didn't tell us that at the beginning, but she's Travis's sister. And it turns out she shot Andy. And she brags about the fact that she also shot his wife. And she says that's one body they're never going to find. So on some level, she's kind of taken care of her older brother. On another level, though, I think it goes back to her early childhood, when their mother would come in and say, who did this? And Travis would say, she did. Well, who did that? She did. So now his sister turns the tables, and when asked who did that, she said, he did. I did it. And hey, whatever happened to Seth Amos? He got away scot-free. Travis is dead. Andy is dead. Who knows? His wife is dead. On and on. So then we have 3 songs. I hope that when you listen to them the next time, you think about them just a little bit differently than you might have when you first heard them. El Paso, a great rhyming Western song in waltz time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we have Escape, where you thought the guy was really just the low life, whatever. It turns out his lovely lady was even lower life than him, dumping him before he could get to it. And then The Night the Lights Are Out in Georgia. So much is wrong with the song lyrically, but still, all 3 of them, fine songs, good songs to listen to, and I hope you enjoyed them. So, my name is Ed Walsh. In a world of cliches, I hope you enjoyed the ride. Next time we'll find ourselves a good one that looks like it could run, and we'll jump on top and ride away. Now, I've been doing a daily blog for about 5 years now. It's called Song of the Day. And if you would like to be included, receiving each day in the morning a song with some information about it, the video of the song, and lyrics, in case you'd like to sing along, I would be happy to include you on our mailing list. Just send me your email address to songforthisday@gmail.com. That is songforthisday@gmail.com. No spaces. Free. It's completely free. Did I mention it's free? There's no obligation on your part except to listen to it, and I'd be happy to include you on the mailing. So that's it for me for today. Song for this day, 3 lovely songs from 3 interesting artists, all #1 hits. One of them an earworm. I promise you'll be singing in your head that you like piña coladas and maybe hating me for doing it. So we'll be doing more of these coming up in the future, and I hope you'll stick around and come back and join us for them. Thank you. Happy trails.